It's time to talk about a little bit of progressive music, especially ones that have recently been coming up and showing themselves to be the brand new generation. The generation that now the current progressive metal or progressive rock fans are beginning to absolutely love and share like crazy. These are a lot of names that perhaps you have heard of, some you may be unaware of. However, it's something where I think that in the coming years, if you don't know the names, you probably will very soon. Prog snobs tend to, want to share that information. There's definitely some that are missing from this list that you can add to the comments below, and you can buy albums from just about any of these artists over on the Amazon pages. I'll link a couple of those below for you, but for right now, let's talk about 10 of the newer progressive bands. Let's call them the top 10, but at the same time, it's really just a list. Number 10 is Flying Colors. Now, this is simply a Mike Portnoy project. However, it's one that, out of the ones that he has debuted since leaving Dream Theater, certainly has the most in common with a lot of the progressive works that he's done in the past. There are a couple of albums that they have released have certainly showed growth, and they're a band that definitely has a lot of great talent and skill to really offer to the world. Considered somewhat of a supergroup, this is one that's definitely got a lot of emotion and also a lot of fans sort of out of the gate due to having some great names in it. Number 9 is Daydream 11. Last year we were absolutely shocked by the Circus of the Tattered and Torn, which was an album that ended up on the top 40 list for the year, or 35, or whatever it was. It really doesn't matter what it was. They were on it, and they were seen as a genuine surprise. They weren't discovered until much later in the year, even though the album had come out earlier in the year. This band has a tremendous display of emotional range, and their storytelling is one of the things that instantly got me hooked to them, and probably will get you hooked as well if you happen to be a progressive music fan. Their unique way and unique take is also done with their musical structure and how they're able to build everything, whether it be emotion, either that or suspense. Daydream 11 certainly has a lot to work on whenever it comes to the follow-up to this album, and it's going to be hard to top. Number 8, Frost Asterisk. This is a band that wowed some prog fans much earlier, in fact back in the 2000s with their album Millennium Town. However, they are back, and their recent material has shown a bit of an evolutionary step in a very, very different direction. It's one that has utilized a lot of that electronic clicking and everything, and really embraced that as part of the progressive sound in order to create something that's truly, it feels very one of a kind, and it led for a very unique experience. This is a group that has a lot to offer, as this album really showed. It showed that they had the ability to really channel into something brand new and perhaps tap into the system in order to really take prog to the next level, or maybe help it explore some brand new territory. These guys are ones that I think are really under the radar and need a little bit more attention. Scope them out whenever you have the time. Number 7 is Prospect. Ever since we first talked about this band, it has become an absolute must-review anytime they have an album dropping. And the Illuminated Sky last year was another one of those such occurrences. And really, this is a band who uses the progressive metal sound really very much to their advantage, while also knowing when to kind of hunker things down and take it down to a softer element or softer moment. But these guys still have a lot to really offer the progressive community, and the Illuminated Sky shows that they are just a band that keeps on getting better, and they keep on embracing new ideas. These guys should be on the tongues of just about everybody who likes prog music, if they aren't already. Number 6 is Big Big Train, one that's more of a prog rock side of this whole coin. I wasn't initially thinking this was a prog band whenever I first listened to some of their recent output, but as it began to open up a lot more, then all of those traits began to show itself. Big Big Train has actually been around for quite some time. It's just that they're finally starting to get the attention to the point where even Prog Magazine voted them, I believe, a year or so ago as the sort of newcomer or breakout artist of the year, which is an odd thing whenever you've already had quite the career. However, this is a band that's gone through many changes, and the most recent change, really embracing that progressive sound, has been one of the best that they have made, considering their albums have been consistently very well received, not to mention have felt contextually very brilliant, hard to put down, hard to stop listening to. That's why Big Big Train is a name that I think that more tongues are now speaking about, and it's only going to grow as time goes on. Number 5 is Long Distance Calling. Now, a lot of folks don't necessarily like purely instrumental music. A lot of other folks would like to call these guys just a post-rock band. But post-rock is kind of like the title of their last album. It's a boundless place. And there's a lot of progressive elements that are found in Long Distance Calling's music, mostly in the way in which they're able to structure their riff patterns, the way in which they're able to shift things, and the way in which they're able to really flip-flop between aggression and calm. That's something you can do with all music, but it's something that, very much like a progressive band would, they do with a lot of sense and grace. There's a lot of technical musicality here that showcases where they have their skill and their talent. And the work is just absolutely jaw-dropping. It's very hard, like I said with Big Big Train, it's very hard to put down. It's albums that actually embrace your inner comfort and give you that nice comfy listen that perhaps that you were hoping to get. Now, since it's instrumental, we don't have a lot of lyricism to talk about. However, they have brought on board some guests, including Jonas from Catatonia, just to name one. So they do have connections and the ability to bring some people on if they so desire. They didn't do it with Boundless, but they'll probably do it with their next record, and they've done it in the past. Scope this band out. You're certainly going to be very impressed. Number 4 is actually a tie, so consider this bonus material. It's a tie between Persephone and Orphan Land, mostly because they are two bands that are, while they're not very similar, or I guess they could be considered similar, they could be considered contemporaries in the prog community, they're doing things that are very similar, and it's the fact that they are using and utilizing that progressive idea within their own sound, which for one is a very oriental or, a very Middle Eastern, Israeli metal. Meanwhile, with Persephone, it's one that embraces some concepts of death metal, some concepts of just heavy metal, just pure heavy metal. There's the progressive, there's the power, there's a lot there. These are sort of those crossover artists that are bringing other aspects of music and heavy metal into their prog. And this is something that's been happening literally for the last decade or two or forever. It's nothing that's all of that new, but for these two bands, they are the elite in that category. They are ones that not only took the world maybe by storm last year in Persephone's case, or in Orphan Land's case, has constantly been an event for folks to listen to their album, and that was proven once again with their album that came out in January of 2018. Both of these bands have shown that they have a fan base that is just growing and getting larger. They are getting support, and they are getting the ears that they start to really deserve. But they need a lot more. So if you've not listened to either of these two bands, make do. It is certainly an experience and a ride for both. And with Orphan Land, the emotional journey alone is certainly worth the endeavor of your time. Number 3 is Caligula's Horse. Australia has a prog scene that is in really, really good hands with these guys. They are a phenomenal group that has a little bit of that rock influence and a little bit of that alternative influence. They have the prog. They have the ability to, dial it into a little bit of metal every now and again. They kind of have the whole package and bring it together very nicely with albums such as In Bloom, as we have seen, or just Bloom, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Nirvana for some reason. I don't know why. This is a group that really, whenever you listen to their album, you're going to get a little bit of a mishmash of everything. And you'll notice that with a lot of these bands, they are not purely just a prog band. They have a little bit of everything, or they're bringing something to the table that feels very fresh, or at least makes them stand out from the crowd. With Caligula's Horse, it's the fact that they blend all these styles in such a nice way, and they're able to really mix things up between the longer tracks as well as sort of shorter moments in order to create pure balance within their own structure. This is a group that has gotten a ton of attention recently, and it's one that deserves a little bit more. So if you're not yet akin, if you're not yet introduced to Caligula's Horse, now is the time. Number 2 is Leprous. Leprous was sort of the band that was rising in attention a couple of years ago. And then with the release of Melina last year, it was one that's got a little bit more attention. And I like the fact that this band continues to grow whenever it comes to their fan base. Really coming from backing Isan during his solo tours to now having their own band and really having their own fans, having really a diehard base and being considered really a very paramount part of prog right now. Those are some really great accolades for this band, and it's absolutely true. While last year's album didn't make the top 40 or whatever list, that's mostly because last year was absolutely stacked. There were tons of great albums to really compete for that crown. Doesn't mean that it was necessarily all of that poor of an album. A couple of years ago, though, they did very, very favorably whenever it came to Album of the Year contention And based around that, Leprous is a name that certainly should be explored, because even for those two albums, you know, the up and down sort of nature, the back catalog is even more fantastic. Definitely albums that I regret not being able to review whenever they came out, because I simply missed them. And then we get to number 1, which is Haken. This is a band that for a long time I called Hawken because I wanted to. It is just whatever. Who cares? It's a name, and this is a huge name. This is a big name. This is a name that had easily one of the best received prog albums of the decade with The Mountain, and it's one that even with their recent outputs, they have showed their ability to not exactly desire to sort of turn the same trick twice, considering with that album, they aim to go a little bit further back. They aim to go with 1980s prog to really build with the theme. And they stuck with it. They didn't just kind of introduce the idea and then go back to their own sound. They actually morphed their sound in order to characterize and better represent that theme that they were going for. And that is something that's very admirable, considering a lot of bands very much do not wish to explore outside of their comfort zone, or whenever they do and claim that they have done so, it doesn't sound like it's all that different. Well, with Haken, it was extremely different, and it was one that I just absolutely love that album. I just absolutely love 1986, I believe it was called. It was a year. It's just a disc that showcases their ability to really pass on from one side to the next, and the next album could be just like The Mountain, or the next album could even go into even deeper territory. We could be looking at an album that sounds very much like Yes meets Marillion meets Dream Theater meets, you know, Persephone or Orphan Land or one of the other names that we just dispatched and mentioned. This is just a group that has a lot of great skill. And it seems like with everything that they decide to attempt, very much like a Steven Wilson, for example, who's not on this list because this name has been known for quite some time. Very much like a Steven Wilson, anything that they attempt, they seem to have a really great game plan, which allows them to achieve the sound that they strive for. And a band, should I say, that puts in that much work, a band that is willing to kind of go that extra mile, that is a band to be reckoned with. And Haken is a band to be reckoned with. If you don't know this band by now, even if you're not a prog music fan, listen to them, because these are the guys that have the potential to make you a progressive music band. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 10 newer prog bands in a top 10 style format. These are 10 fantastic places that you can start your progressive music journey if you want to start with a more recent artist, as opposed to one of the old standards and classics, you know, the Dream Theaters, the Queensryches, the Yeses and the Genesises of the world. I want to know which ones I missed, because I know that I missed a ton in this list. You know, I really told you that from the onset. Let me know in the comments below what your top 10 newer prog bands are. You know, ones from the 2000s and the 2010s, the ones that are currently defining this generation of progressive music. Let me know. I'm CoverKillerNation. Like I said, you can pick up some of these albums over on Amazon. Follow the link for your country. I have a store for US, UK, and Canada. If you're in another territory, let me know, and I can maybe set something up for you. Once again, CoverKillerNation. I'll speak with you guys next time. Take care.